Good afternoon, welcome to another video from Cut Corner Studio. What we're going to look and talk about today is how we went about building the Thor logo for the third installment of the movies called Ragnarok. What we'll look at, and as you can see here, we've got sort of some of the overview of how we went about doing it. We're going to look at some of the features, the sources or resources that we found online to actually put this together, with some small focus moments on using Inkscape and the techniques and tools that you can use to be able to get similar effects like we have here. If you found this video on YouTube, as per usual, please don't forget to subscribe. The full written article is found on our website at cutcorner.co.uk, Design Tips and Tutorials, which is the news tab. And you can either type Thor in here, or if you find this very, very soon, then from the time that we've published this particular video, you'll find it towards the top of the list on the actual feed. But just for those who find it a little bit later on, if you just type Thor, and you'll see that there it is right at the top. So what this will be is effectively a kind of vocalized version of the article, so you may see some of the things that we talk about you will actually read within the article, so this could be quite useful for people who don't want to read too much. You can just press play and watch as we work through our processing creating this particular logo. So for those not knowing, we'll just start with a little bit of history around the brand that is Thor, and for those not knowing, we're a couple of years away from the third installment that's mentioned, which is titled Thor Ragnarok. And what we noticed from doing a bit of research, there isn't much about it on the web, and I think that's because it is quite early doors. There was a teaser trailer that we found on YouTube, but it really is very, very brief, so we really couldn't put much up on this particular article about it. So when you do go to the article, you will find the Thor the Dark World trailer, which we thought would be a good way of setting the scene, if you like, to the work. But what we were able to discover from doing a bit of research through Google is that the actual logo itself is designed very heavily around Norse and Viking pattern design. So it was very, it seemed very relevant to actually look into that, to be able to find some form of pattern that we could work with. If you've seen any of the movies and of the Avengers movies, in particular Avengers Assemble, towards the end, when he takes Loki away back to Asgard after he'd been effectively arrested, Thor leaves in quite spectacular fashion and leaves a pattern on the floor. That pattern in particular can be best described as a Norse Viking pattern, we were able to look at several resources. One that we did find that was quite useful was a website called philipshakesmasters.wordpress.com, which talks about designing methodology for new media, and in particular this was centered around the iPad journey, but the article was quite helpful for us in that it looked at Viking carvings and symbols. This gave us some background to be able to start looking at what kind of graphics to choose and pick for a suitable background, and in particular styling to the main font, logo font. So it'd be worth having a look at that particular website if you get a chance, because it's got some quite interesting information found within it. What I'm going to quickly do is just bring up the actual final design so that you can get a kind of overview as we talk through it. Looking at the design that seems to be the type logo for the new film in 2017, which is found within our actual article, there's evidence of the North pattern within the internal elements of the logo font. So as mentioned, it felt like it seemed very, very relevant to actually go down that line ourselves when looking at using Inkscape to create a realistic final solution. So with that as our background, we then started to look at typography and the types of typography that we used within two particular elements of this particular logo, which was the Marvel logo itself, and also the Thor font style. What we were able to find with two different font typographies, one called Modi Thorson, which we found on dafont.com, which is this here is the website here, and it gives you an opportunity to be able to play with it. It comes down with about, I think it's 11 different types, but as you can see, that was the font that we went with for the main title logo. What we also found was another one called Benton Sands Extra Comp Black, which we had to do a bit of searching for, but found it through socialfonts.com. And this particular resource that we found, which we were able to download, was very useful because it gave us some hex codes as to what colours to use for the logo to make it actually realistic. So as you can see, the red is actually a sort of unique red code. It's not your typical. And then the logo being white, which is a 6F's hex code. If you want to actually get involved and design your own version of this, what we have done, like we do in all our articles, is we've placed up a zip file that's attached to the site that actually has all the resources in it, including the 2 fonts that you'll need to be able to build the actual logo. So just to let you know. What we're now going to do is we're going to go jump into Inkscape. So we're going to do little focus points focused around particular areas we thought were quite tricky to achieve, rather than go through the whole thing, because we wouldn't really have time and it would become quite boring sitting here for hours on end as we get this created. But for the next sort of 5 minutes, we're going to look at some of the more intricate elements of this design and how we got the finish that we did when the final logo was published. Okay, what we're going to look at now is the creation of this text effect that we've managed to achieve for the actual Thor logo, and the same applies for the actual title of the film here. We've just very quickly jumped into Inkscape, and you can find this particular file on the article itself. But we're just going to talk you through how we actually went about creating this Ragnarok title, and it's not as complicated as you might think. Very quickly, what we'll do is we've got this font set to Century Gothic at the moment, but all I'm now going to do is just type Modi and find that Modi Thorson is here. If you type Ragnarok, and make sure your cap locks are on first, so that it comes up as capitals. That's obviously quite an important thing to mention. So that's literally how we use that and get that font in place. But it's the effects really that we're really after, and this particular title comes in three different layers. And the first is that using this to get the pattern involved, and what we did was just create, using the background pattern here, we've duplicated it, sized it down, and I'm just going to duplicate it a couple of times until we've got it duplicated so many times that the actual graphic, the pattern stretches to the length of the text. So what I'm doing is just literally right clicking and duplicating, and I'm going to come back to you in just a second so that we speed this up once I've done that. Okay, as you can see that I've now duplicated this particular pattern 7 times. And the next thing I'm going to do is just stick it all together by going to Path and Union. So that should join them all together. Now what I'm now going to do is literally duplicate this particular text using my shortcut, which is Control D, and I'm just going to use my arrow key to place this over the top of the pattern. Okay, now what I can actually do just to make sure that everything is centered is if I go to my line tool at the top there, change it relative to the biggest object. If I hold down Shift and select the pink pattern, I can place this to the center, so as you can see that's just nudged along. Now with that text hovering over the pattern, all I'm going to do is just go to Path and Intersection, which is going to leave us with a kind of pattern version of the word. So as you can see, it's already taking shape. Now I'm going to duplicate it one more time and bring it down. I'm now going to right click here over the orange, and I'm just going to set a stroke. That's quite small because the text is quite big, so I'm just going to increase it to probably 3 pixels, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to remove the stroke by right clicking down here in the bottom left, so I'm just left with the outline. Okay, I've just actually resized my screen so that you can actually see everything happening and then my recorder doesn't get in the way. So I'm just going to select that. I'm now going to right click and remove fill, so I'm just left with the outline of the word Ragnarok. I'm going to go to path, and then I'm just going to turn the path into the stroke into a path itself, so that I've got something that I can edit a bit later on. Now what I'm now going to do is just select the top version. I'm just going to the original and can see that it's dark grey. I'm just going to turn it into a very dark grey, and I'm going to just drop a linear gradient through it. Don't be too worried if you can't see the bottom of it straight away, because once I select this lower node, I'm just going to apply a slightly lighter grey to it so that you can see it. And then what I then do is I'm just going to place the outline over the top of it. So if I select both of those and go to my alignment using biggest object, that should place that right on the top. And I'm going to do exactly the same with the bottom logo. I'm just going to hold down Shift, select the outline, and I'm going to do the same. But as you can see now that that's disappeared because it's actually a layer, so it's a little bit lower down. So all I'm going to do is just go to Object and Lower, select the same one, top, Object and Lower. You can actually, if you notice here on a PC, you can just press Page down on your number key, and that's a lot quicker. Object Lower, and now we can see that that pink pattern is in place. I'm just going to select it and zoom right in so you can see this taking place, and just to check that that is actually the pattern. It's not. I'm going to lower that just one more time so that the pink pattern is over the top. I can see now that's changed. I'm just going to pick a slightly lighter grey than the actual background, and that's about right. I'm just going to drop a linear gradient through it, like so, and as you can see that kind of Norse pattern seems to kind of fade into the text. Now if I select that and Object and Lower again, I've then got my text in place, just like the original. You can tweak with the gradient for the grey. I can see that that's a little bit lighter than the original, but that's how we went about doing that. And what you'll notice is the same applies for the actual Thor logo. It's a slightly more detailed version, but I'm sure if you go through the process yourself, you'll be able to see how we went about doing that. And finally, what we're now going to focus in on is the Marvel logo itself and how we did that. So I'm very quickly just going to hit Control and D and just duplicate this up one more time, and we're just going to go very quickly through how we did that using the web resources. So you'll have to install the actual font itself first and open up Inkscape, but if I just copy that hex code initially, what I'm now going to do is just turn my grid on, and I'm going to create a larger version of it. I'll very quickly remove the stroke off that. I'm going to double click the fill box here so that that opens. If I just click that paint brush up here at the top, and all I'm going to do is replace those sixes with the red that I copied from the website. What I'm now going to do is just using, with cap locks on, I'm just going to type Marvel. I'm going to turn it white. As you can see, it's by default set to Century Gothic. So now what I'm going to do is just literally type Benton, and there it is there. As you can see, the logo is almost finished, but what I'm going to very quickly do is just nudge it in using my letter spacing tool here so that it is a little bit closer together. Hold down Shift, select the box, go into my alignment tool, making sure that the biggest object is selected here relative to the biggest object, and then I'm going to push that right into the middle. Apply a shadow, just set to 2 here, but in the actual instructions for the final logo I think it was set to 1, but just for size purposes, that's that there done. And there you can tweak the size of the red box if you wanted to. Apply a gradient to it if you really wish, but that is in a sense how we went about doing it. If you want to read a little bit more about it, get some of the resources, they're all available here within the Thor Ragnarok logo study article, and we'll be placing this video up there very, very shortly. Thank you for watching.